welcome to Computer Retro Bus. Today's episode, we're looking at this system that was recently donated to me. I have no idea what's inside. I'm gonna open it up, give it a clean out, then get an operating system installed. So one of my good mates reached out to me and said, hey look, we're getting rid of this old computer. Do you want it? First question I ask is obviously, how old is it? If it's 10 years old, I'm not interested. If it's 20, now we're talking. So he said, no, it's pretty old. I said, all right, I'll take it, so I'll have a look. So he said it wasn't used very much. He said that because he works in a Mac environment, they have all Macs, Mac computers, Mac network, Mac systems. He said they only had one PC, which they had to have to run some banking software. He said they turned it on once a month to run the payroll or accounting of some sort, and that's it. So I have no idea what's in there. Let's see. Okay, let's have a look inside, and this must be the cleanest PC I've ever seen. I don't think my normal computer's this clean. Look at this. Wow. Either this has been cleaned or operated in a clean room. This is amazing. This is such good condition. So it looks like it's an AMD system. I can see that Enforce chipset, which is awesome. The Enforce 2 chipset. This is what you really wanted if you were running AMD back in the day. Just ran so much better, overclocked, got so much better performance. And we do have a video card of some sort, not sure what. It does have DVI, S-Video and VGA out. Lots of sound options, which you always did with the Enforce chipset, which is really good. Tended to have a good sound chipset as well. So we've got all that surround options. A little bit of corrosion on the case. Otherwise, it is so clean. Wow. Got an optical drive. Hard drive has been taken out, as every professional IT person should do. And we've got 2 sticks of RAM. I think these systems ran dual channel. Really good. Wow. All right, what we'll do next is get the motherboard out and that video card out and see what we're working with.
So not much to take out in terms of cards, it's just the video card. This is when things were really starting to get integrated quite a lot into motherboards, you know, sound, network, all that sort of stuff. Modems were pretty much really on the way out by now. It looks like it is an ATI 9550. Not bad, sort of lower budget end to be honest. What I'll do next is unplug the power cables and the IDE cables and just unscrew the motherboard and get it out of there. Good look at it. We'll have a look at the thermal paste on those chips. Now gently lifting it out, and here it is, the A7N8X. This was a fantastic motherboard in the day. It supported up to 3 GB of RAM, had an AGP 8X slot, hence the 8X name I guess, had other features like SATA RAID, an onboard 6-channel audio, and also a gigabit LAN. I remember back in the day, the 2 big motherboards that you really wanted if you were running AMD were the A7N8X or the A7V8X. The N being the Enforce chipset, the V being the VIA chipset. Now both had their pros and cons, but generally N was by far the more favoured one. I think it had a little bit better performance than the V. They were both great chipsets, as far as I can remember. And one of the reasons I removed this motherboard, even though it was so clean, was to get this cooler off. These coolers were an absolute nightmare. So you can imagine this cooler is wedged right next to the power supply, and trying to get a screwdriver in here to try and get this thing off was just gymnastics. And the coolers designed back then were not very user friendly. You had to get a flathead screwdriver, jam it in here, put some serious weight on it, and then try and lever it out. Many accidents were had in the day. A good friend of mine, Matt, if he's watching, he knows, he slipped and the screwdriver came down and scratched a few traces off his motherboard. So the CPU came off pretty easily, no dried up thermal paste. It looks pretty good. So the other risk, apart from stabbing your motherboard trying to get your heatsink on these systems, was actually crushing the exposed die on these AMD chips. So if you remember, some of the Pentium 3 chips were similar. They had the exposed die. You had to be really careful. If you pushed too hard or leaned on that heatsink, you could actually crush it and crack the exposed CPU die. Again, had a few friends do this. Completely destroys the CPU. They put 4 little foam pads in each corner to try and prevent you from doing this, but it really didn't help that much. So here it is, an Athlon XP 2500 Plus. This is a fantastic CPU. I really loved mine when I had it back in the day. I can't recall exactly what speed mine was, but it was a fantastic chip. It was such good value for money, especially compared to the Pentium 4s, which were ridiculously expensive at the time. So up until now, everything was running smoothly. Motherboard was clean as a whistle. CPU heatsink came off nice and easy. But all that was about to end with the Battle of the Northbridge. Years of heat cycle and dust had fused it into the board like ancient rock. It was cemented in there. It would not budge. I released the pins, but that did nothing. I was wiggling it, but there was no way it was going to move. It's not going to twist. It is not going to go anywhere. I was about to give up, but someone in our previous video had suggested get some heat onto them. Finally, out came the hairdryer. A desperate move. A few minutes of heat later, it finally broke loose with dried thermal paste that looked like chewed bubblegum from 2003. I thought the battle was over, but it was just beginning. Getting that heatsink off was one thing, but actually getting that substance off that chip and the heatsink was another. My God, it was so painful. I had to use lots of heat and scraping with other plastic objects. Rinse and repeat, about 10 times. And finally we can see that N-Force 2 Ultra 400 Northbridge. Unfortunately, I got some similar action on the ATI Radeon 9550. The heatsink had one of those thermal pads on it that had dried to a hard concrete. Got back to scraping again. IPA did absolutely nothing. Unfortunately, it was back to the trusted and true, heat it up and scrape it off. Okay, the battle has been won. We've defeated the nasty compound of Christmas past. Time to apply fresh thermal paste on all our heatsinks and start rebuilding this system. I'm taking extra care with that CPU cooler because things can go really wrong here. The last thing I need is a cracked die or a scratched motherboard. I'll get that RAM back in. I've got 2 sticks of DDR400 at 512 megs each. Okay, now let's get it all back into the case. And I must say, it is pretty damn clean apart from that little bit of corrosion on that exhaust fan grill. It is in excellent condition. I'll get that video card back in now and I'll also get power to the motherboard. Also plug in the data cables and power to the other devices. Since the system doesn't have a hard drive, I'm going to plug in one of mine. This is a 40GB Seagate that I had way back in the day actually. I think I bought this originally, so it's a fantastic hard drive. These particular Seagates were awesome. I never had any trouble with them.
Okay, all done. Wasn't too bad apart from that Northbridge and that video card, so oh well. All right, so we've plugged it all up. Let's have a look if we're gonna boot. Turn my screen on. All right, little LED in there's on. Beep, beeps are always good. Lovely. Okay, let's go to the BIOS. That's not good. Let's try again. Okay, so hard drive that I plugged in is there. That's our DVD drive and floppy disk. Everything seems okay. I'm not sure why it just turned off before. I decided to go Windows 98. I was torn between going 98 or Windows ME. I know Windows ME has a bad reputation. I've experienced it firsthand. Windows ME came out right when I was working for a large telecommunications company and they were rolling out this software and my job was to test it on all the operating systems at the time. So I tested it on Windows 95, NT, 98, and ME had just come out. And ME was by far the worst. It always created problems and crashes and whatnot. But I think with patching and all that sort of stuff, you can actually get it pretty stable these days. But for this one, you know what? We'll stick with Windows 98. Okay, so I've set it to boot from floppy. Once I boot from floppy, I've actually done a little bit of pre-work. I've already partitioned this hard drive into 2 partitions, both in FAT32. And the second partition already has Windows 98, Windows 95, Windows ME on it ready to go. So you can just install it from the second partition. This is a great little trick to just install it really quickly. Also, if you don't have optical drives or finding an optical drive that works these days, that's IDE is actually pretty difficult, but doing this little trick actually gets around it. If you guys are more interested in it, I can do a bit more of an in-depth tutorial on how to do that. So I'll put the disc in. So you can see it's just a simple boot disc without even a CD driver. Don't need it. So we can check out partitions. We've got a C drive. I already had Windows 95 on this, so there is some contents on this drive, but we will go ahead and format it. And if I go to D drive, it'll have all those CDs expanded on that drive ready to go, and I can install straight from there. So we'll go ahead and install Win98. Believe it or not, format is not on the disk. So we're gonna have to use the format from the CD that came on Windows 98. So I'll just say format C, give us a nice clean slate on C drive, and /Q is just a toggle for quick format. Yes, we're sure. Now we can just run the setup. Unfortunately, I have to go old school with this because my capture card can't get these resolutions. And here we are, Windows 98, ready to be set up straight from that second partition without the need of an optical drive.
So there's a couple of good benefits to having the CDs on that second drive. Obviously you can just simply install your Windows from it, but also with Windows 9X series you really needed the CD quite often. When you installed sometimes a driver or something, it says insert your CD, so your CD is always ready to go if you ever need it. And obviously the speed benefit you get from installing it off a hard drive. This whole installation took about 13 minutes.
So you can see a lot of devices are not working because the drivers aren't installed. This is another benefit that you can get from already copying them over to that second drive, and then they're just ready to install. So you don't have to try and get a CD or a USB. They're ready to go, installing straight off that second drive.
Speaking of which, let's start getting those drivers sorted. We'll start with the nForce 4 drivers. These handle the motherboard's core features like SATA, USB and networking. Basically the glue that keeps everything talking. They were the key to squeezing out every ounce of performance out of those Athlon 64 systems. Time to load the ATI Radeon 9550 drivers. This is a mid to low range legend from the XP era. It wasn't the fastest card, but it punched way above its weight for the time and much better than the dreaded 9200 SE. God, those things were terrible. And there we are, all the devices are running, no errors, video card set to 32-bit color and a cute little background, ready to rock. Before we move on to some gaming and benchmarks, we can look at our system. So it is an AMD Athlon XP, Barton core, and we've got 1GB of RAM running dual channel. Okay, let's kick things off with Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. This was a great game back in the day, I really loved this game. Played it all the way to the end. On this system it runs really good. It seems to be frame capped. I don't see it going over 30. It sort of touches 31, so I think it's a bit of a frame capping issue here. This was really very console-y type game as well, so I think that's what it looks like. I'm sure this system could do probably better than that, but it runs very good, playable, smooth. 60 would be nicer, but I guess 30 will have to do. And again, I think it's because it was a console port maybe that's holding it back. Next we have Prince of Persia: Warrior Within. This game came out 1 year after Sands of Time, so not that much later, but the game struggles much more. You can see the graphics has improved so much more within that 1 year. This was a time when games were really advancing quite quickly, and you can see the effect that it has on the graphics card. It really struggles. It's always pretty much in the mid-teens most of the time, so pretty choppy, bit difficult to play. This is set at 1024 by 768, all the games are, but this one, yeah, it really struggles. Okay, going back to something a little bit earlier now with Unreal, and here we are with the iconic opening scene. This was amazing back in the day, oh my god. Locked at 60 frames per second, running at 1024 by 768 at 32-bit color. Can't get better than this. This is fantastic. Played a little bit of multiplayer as well to see what it was like. Same thing, locked at 60, won't go any higher than that. It was a little bit difficult to play though because the default setting for some reason has the mouse inverted. Who the hell plays with an inverted mouse? Actually, you know what? There was one friend of mine that played with an inverted mouse in my clan and he was pretty damn good. Shout out to you, Ian, if you're watching. Next we have Need for Speed Underground. This game also has a frame cap of 60 frames per second. But when playing it, the game tends to be fluctuating between 35 and 45 frames most of the time. It will shoot up to that 60 frame limit once the geometry or the objects get a bit more simpler. So going through tunnels where there isn't as many objects on the screen to render, it does hit that 60 frame cap. Lastly, we have Halo for PC. Now, this system really struggled with Halo. Initially, I was running it at 1024 by 768, but it really, once you get into the action, it really starts to stutter and becomes unplayable. Going through the hallways in simple geometry, yeah, it's fine, but as soon as you start looking at enemies, it becomes pretty much a slideshow. Other issue I had was when you were going through a checkpoint and it was obviously saving to the system, it would just pause and just freeze up for a couple of seconds and then continue on. Really unplayable.
Okay, and there we are. So really happy with this system. It's interesting that it's a little bit dust on the outside, but inside was absolutely immaculate. Did not expect that. But yeah, so wrapped to have a Athlon XP in my collection again. I used to have one of these, I loved it. I'm pretty sure I had a VIA chipset one because I couldn't afford the N-Force back in the day. So it's great to have an N-Force. These systems were really great, very flexible. You can run Windows 98, 95 if you wanted to, ME easily, but XPs where it really shined. And this was the golden era for this system. I remember playing CS competitively back then, and this was my go-to system. Got great frames, and it was really nice. Good flexible system that ran most things back in the day. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. I'm really loving engaging with you guys and really trying to grow this channel. It's a young channel, I'm just starting out. But yeah, love hearing some of the comments, some of the experiences that you guys have, and some of the memories that you have of some of these systems that we're working on. Thank you again for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.